Hello everyone, welcome to Cloudera Replication Demos. My name is Yi Wu, I'm a product manager at Cloudera. Today in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how we can use CDP private cloud-based Replication Manager to safely and smoothly replicate data in Ozone buckets between two on-prem clusters. Cloudera supports three types of Ozone storage: object store buckets, file system optimization, and legacy buckets. To create Ozone replication policies, CDP PvC-based 718 clusters or higher using CM771 or higher is required. The present PvC DS 151 supports full data copy, and incremental replication is coming soon in PvC DS 152. First of all, we need to register two classic clusters, one as the source cluster and the other as the target cluster. Go to the Cloudera Management Console, access the Clusters tab on the left menu bar, and register by filling in the cluster details as shown on the screen. Note that the Cloudera Manager URL is in the form of http://hostname:/port. This URL information can also be found in the Cloudera Manager host guide. For more documentation on prerequisites before creating the replication, please use the link below the screen. Now, I will firstly demonstrate how to replicate FSO and legacy buckets. They're essentially the same. The first step is to prepare a source FSO bucket to replicate. After accessing the source cluster, we create a volume called task-vol. Then create a legacy bucket called buck1 in the volume, create a FSO bucket called buck2 in the volume, create a key called foo.txt and put it into the FSO bucket. Note that Ozone replications are all at bucket level, meaning the whole bucket will be replicated. The second step is to prepare the target bucket. Note that in Ozone replication, it always needs to be the same type as the source bucket, which is FSO in our case here. After accessing the target cluster, we create a volume called task-vol, then create an FSO bucket in the volume, check that the target bucket is empty, and lastly, verify that the source bucket has data inside to replicate. Now we can start creating the replication policy. Access the replication policies page in Replication Manager and click on Create Policy. On the General page, choose Ozone as type, fill in a unique policy name, and put a description optionally. Then click Next to access Select Source and choose the registered source cluster from the pull-down menu to replicate. Select FSO to FSO as path type and enter the source volume and source bucket accordingly. The third path type, full path, can be used for any storage type. The path is in the form of OFS, column, // service ID, / volume name, / bucket name. The Ozone service ID can be found in the Cloudera Manager Ozone configuration page. For OBS buckets, the volume name is S3V. I will explain it more in the OBS demo in the second part of this video. Click Next to select the destination. Choose the registered target cluster from the pull-down menu and enter the destination volume and bucket accordingly. Click Next to schedule the replication. It can be scheduled later and adjust the frequency. For now, I will go with Run Now. Now click Next to access the additional settings page. Here we can find a bunch of options to customize the replication policy. Adjust as needed, and now we are ready to click Create. After creating the policy successfully, we can monitor the replication progress by accessing the job history. In the command details, we can see detailed processes and get notified if any error comes up. The green tick here shows that the replication job successfully finished. Now we can go back to the target cluster to check that the data is replicated correctly. Here we can see that the target bucket has foo.txt inside. Now let's move on to showcase the replication on OBS buckets. The first step is to prepare a source OBS bucket to replicate. After accessing the source cluster, we create an OBS bucket called bug.obs in the volume test-val. Put a key called bar.txt into bug.obs and link it to S3v volume. Note that in order to replicate OBS buckets, all buckets need to be linked under S3v volume or directly created under S3v volume. S3v volume is a default volume. The second step is to prepare the target bucket. Recall that in Ozone Replication, it always needs to be the same type as the source bucket, which is OBS in our case here. After accessing the target cluster, we directly create an OBS bucket called bug.obs under the volume S3v and check that the target OBS bucket is empty. Now we can start creating the replication policy. The UI workflow for OBS is nearly the same as that of FSO. We set up general page and then identify source. Note that by selecting OBS to OBS as pass type here, we don't need to specify volume name since it's all S3v. However, before selecting the destination, there's an important configuration setup we have to finish. This is specifically for OBS bucket replication only. Basically, we need to add the key value pairs in the following tables to the Ozone Client Advanced Configuration snippet, safety valve property, in the ozone-site.xml file in both source cluster and target cluster. The file can be found in the Configuration tab under Cloudera Manager Ozone page. The rest of the steps, including select destination, schedule, and additional settings, are exactly the same as that of FSO. Just enter and adjust the values accordingly, and then we are ready to create the policy. After creating the policy successfully, we can also monitor the replication progress by accessing the job history and the command details. The green tick here shows that the replication job successfully finished. Now we can go back to the target cluster to check that the data is replicated correctly. Here we can see that the bucket called bug.obs has bar.txt inside. We can also download the data and access to check that it is replicated correctly.